What is up, YouTube? And welcome back to the channel. We're working on the Subaru today. Going to be building some intercooler piping, and then after that we can pull the engine and start prepping for the new one. So let's get to it. So here are the 3 pieces of aluminum tubing I bought. Sorry if you hear gunshots, they are shooting outside. But these are 3.5 inch intercooler piping that I will be using to build the piping that goes from my throttle body to my intercooler piping that comes out through my fender liner. So I'm just going to be using pie cuts here to get the turn that I need here and just go straight through. This 45 that I have right here, I should be able to just cut short there, and it has pretty much a straight shot up to the throttle body, so it's just a matter of connecting those. And I should have enough straight pieces here to do the pie cuts. That'll come straight off and wrap around. So I found a Excel sheet that will do all of the measuring and calculating for you. So you just need to find out your angle that you need, the size of your piping, and how many pieces you cut. And I will throw a link in the description to that program so that you guys can use it if you want, but that will tell you the angle you need to cut at and how wide the long side of the angle, or the long side of the piece, needs to be. So I'm going to start figuring that out. I'm going to use some cardboard to practice pieces, that way I don't cut up my piping and waste it. So start there. Well, I finally got this all figured out. Had a few mistakes at first. First one, you can see when I went for angles, when I measured it, I thought it was 50 degrees, but really it was 50 degrees past 90 degrees. So I should have been measuring at 140 degrees. So that's why it's like a little short 50-degree angle. Cut it out and I was like, yeah, that's obviously wrong. The next mistake, I was putting in the diameter into the calculator, which is the full distance of a circle, not half. And then I was like, oh duh, so I had a 5 radius, which gives me a 10-inch diameter. So then I was like, oh, so I need to cut that in half to give me a 5, which leaves me with this. Bring it over here. Fits inside my firewall throttle body and gives me the right curve. So I know that will do for me. So just need to cut out the metal. But first, I think I'm going to come in here. I need to change this out for a coupler that goes from 2.5 to 3.5. So I need to take off the tire and do that. So I got my hole widened out, just use the Dremel and widen it out a bit. And then I use just a piece of rubber hose, so like a vacuum line or something like that. Cut it down the middle all the way. And then I tuck it in around the edges, that way the intercooler coupler doesn't get cut. So fits in there snug, like so. And then take my 90, put it in. Before you start making your cuts for your pie cuts, you're going to want to mark, I know it's kind of hard to see with how shiny it is, but there it is. There's a line going all the way down, and you want it exactly on the other side. That way, you know you can cut, make your degree cut, and then you just flip it over and move it, and that cut angle will change just by rolling it over. So you can just cut back and forth without having to move the saw at all. You can just cut back and forth like this. got the charge pipe all tacked up, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Everything's pretty smooth. Transitions are good. Not bad for my first time. Yeah, that's gonna make the engine bay look a lot better. Well, this just needs to be finished welding up, which I'll just do that off camera. But now that this pipe is done, I can pull the engine. So that is my next step. So one of the most questions you get when you've done an EG33 swap is, what is your radiator setup? Because they are so long, they sit very close to the core support of the car. And so you have to get creative. So everyone's like, okay, what's your radiator setup? How do you deal with it? I'll go through kind of what I have. You can see down there, and there are my radiator mounts. I just took some square tubing, inch square tubing, welded it on to the original radiator support of the subframe. And then I drilled holes and I put these rubber bushings on it with some bolts. And that is how my Griffin radiator is mounted. You can see there. Other things I have done, I did a thermostat relocation kit. As you can see, it's in there. This moves it to the top of the radiator, the inlet of the radiator. And the reason I did that is because it opens up more flow for the engine to take in. And I guess what happens when you start cranking power out of these is the coolant can't go through fast enough and it starts to boil or something. And so to combat that, I built my own bigger inlet for the engine. So that is a 52 millimeter aluminum piping that I used. And so that just helps with maximum flow. So that is my radiator setup. And another huge question is, do you have to cut your core support? No, you do not have to in certain setups. Depends how you set it up. The reason I did was for this reason right here. I was able to pull out my radiator without taking the front of my car off. I have this angle iron that I use for my center support. Just bolts in between, so that way I can take it off, undo the hoses to my radiator, and I can lift it out the front. Then that gives me enough room to pull my engine out. If you don't do that, you have to take off the bumper and everything, which isn't a huge deal, but I've done it a lot and I'm kind of sick of doing it. So that is my radiator setup for those who are interested. Well, hot dang, that was an adventure. As you can see, I got it out, but when we say that these engines barely fit in here, it is true. There's barely enough room to slide the engine forward enough to get it off the input shaft of the transmission, but you're banging and scraping against the core support. So, yep, things we do for the bigger engine. But came out fairly as I was expecting. As you can see, this engine has had pretty hard life. Surprisingly, it's only been in the car for like 1,000 miles, but they're pretty hard miles. Every time I was able to get to a checkpoint to where I could drive the car and tune it, I was doing full rips on it. The dyno, I think they had over 30-40 pulls on it, tuning it. So the engine's had a hard life. And you wouldn't know it, but before I put this engine in, I actually fully cleaned it. So this was all shiny. Not so shiny anymore. So this engine was pretty worn before I put it in. Had pretty good leaks. And then the head gasket just kind of nailed in the coffin. But my game plan is to take parts from this that are in better shape, like the valve covers or the timing covers and things like that. I'll just combine the two engines and make the most clean, solid engine. So now I can work on cleaning out the engine bay. Need to get rid of the battery tray so I can mount my coil packs there. I'm going to clean up everything, patch some holes in the firewall, do some things like that. So lots of work to do still, and I'm still waiting for my pistons to get here. I think the coronavirus has slowed those down a lot, so still waiting, but that's okay. Still have a lot of things to do. But I think this is where I'm going to end this video. But thank you all for watching. I appreciate all the support. This car is hopefully going to be back and running before too long. But I don't know, this whole virus thing has really thrown everything out of whack. Can't get parts as fast, and everything is just in limbo, it seems like. So I'll do what I can between this and the truck. We still have a lot we can do on the truck. We're going to get back on that probably next week. But thank you guys all for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions regarding to my swap and the way I did things, feel free to do it. I love answering questions and just letting people know how I did it. I'm not saying it's the best way, but it is a way. So if you haven't yet, subscribe so you can keep up with the videos, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.